He nodded slowly. Do you still want to help girls? Yes, she said, voice firm now. I want to build something, even if it starts small. Then do it, he replied, as though it was that simple. You can use the Bello Foundation. They'll welcome you. Your family's charity? Our charity, he corrected gently. And just like that, the first seed of respect was planted between them. By the end of the month, Halimat had become a quiet force in the foundation. With Ibrahim's subtle backing and her own education, she redesigned the vocational training programs for northern women. She visited Zaria, Jos, and Mina. She spoke in Hausa and English, connected with village women, and began documenting the impact. One afternoon, Halimat Bello Ibrahim's mother pulled her aside in the hallway. You've done well, she said, surprisingly soft-spoken. I didn't think you had it in you, Halimat smiled. Thank you, Mama. You'll make a fine mother too soon, inshallah. Halimat blushed and quickly excused herself. Motherhood wasn't something she'd thought about. Not yet. She was just beginning to breathe again. But peace never lasts long where Khadijah is involved. She returned like a storm in satin, unannounced, uninvited, and unapologetic. The day she arrived, Halimat was hosting 2 women from a local NGO in the parlor. Khadijah barged in with her usual flair, dressed in flamboyant lace, her daughter Fatima trailing behind like a reluctant shadow. Subhanallah, Khadijah exclaimed dramatically. My daughter, look at you. Lagos has fed you well. Halimat stood, confused and embarrassed. Khadijah, what are you doing here? Fatima gave a fake smile. Just paying a visit. Isn't that allowed? Before Halimat could answer, Ibrahim entered the room, freshly back from work, sleeves rolled, his expression unreadable. His eyes scanned the scene. Is there a reason for this visit? Oh, just family checking in, Khadijah said sweetly. Although we do have a concern. Fatima stepped forward, holding a small envelope. We didn't want to say anything, but we found some letters between Halimat and a certain Yusuf Mahmoud. Halimat's heart stopped. Khadijah's smile widened. Quite romantic, I must say. From before the marriage, of course. But who's to say they stopped? Ibrahim looked at Halimat, his jaw tight, but his eyes calm. Yusuf? He's my cousin, Halimat said immediately. He's been helping me investigate what Khadijah did with my father's accounts. She forged documents, sold land behind my back, Khadijah gasped. Lies. I have proof, Halimat said. Yusuf sent me everything. The room fell into a heavy silence. Then Ibrahim turned to Khadijah. Leave. Now. You can't throw me out, she snapped. This is my house. You are no longer welcome here. Khadijah tried to protest, but his voice rose cold and final. Guards, he called. Show them out. As Khadijah was escorted away, her eyes locked with Halimat's. This isn't over, she growled. Halimat didn't flinch. Not this time. That night, Ibrahim knocked on her door. When she opened it, he held 2 mugs of tea. "You could have told me sooner," he said softly. "I was afraid. You don't have to be anymore." "And an I-10." She nodded, tears stinging her eyes. For the first time, she didn't feel like someone's pawn. She felt like someone's partner. She was once a pawn in someone else's game. Now, she holds the board. The morning after Khadijah was thrown out of the mansion, Halimat woke up to a quiet house, but this time the silence felt peaceful, not heavy, like the air had been cleared. She found Ibrahim in the kitchen, barefoot, stirring tea himself, a rare sight. He looked up when she walked in, and instead of the polite nods they used to exchange, he handed her a cup without a word. There was warmth in the gesture, familiarity. As she sipped, their eyes met, and it was clear the wall between them was gone. Over the next few weeks, their lives became more intertwined, not because anyone forced them to act like a married couple, but because they chose to. Halimat began joining Ibrahim in his study more often, sometimes to read, sometimes to talk, sometimes just to sit quietly and exist in the same space. Ibrahim, in return, started asking more questions, not out of formality, but interest. "What was your favorite memory with your dad?" he asked one night as they shared dinner on the rooftop balcony. Halimat smiled softly. "He used to bring roasted groundnuts home wrapped in old newspaper. He'd pour them into a bowl and we'd sit on the mat outside watching the stars while he told me stories of his youth. Sometimes made up, sometimes true." "I would have liked him," Ibrahim said. "You remind me of him," she replied. He looked surprised. "How? You think before you speak. You observe. You don't force things," he chuckled. "People usually say I'm too reserved. I call it wisdom," she said. And he blushed lightly, not out of shyness, but because he wasn't used to such genuine compliments. But the moment of peace didn't last forever. 3 weeks after Khadijah's exit, Halimat received a call from Yusuf. "She's hiding in Kaduna," he said, voice tight. "But that's not the problem. I found something." "What is it?" "She's been using your name to apply for widow support grants in multiple states. She forged your ID, your signature, and collected over 5 million naira in donations. In fact, she used some of it to buy land in her name, but claiming it was for a school you were opening." Halimat felt her chest tighten. "She used my name to steal charity money?" "Yes. And I've gathered proof copies of applications, bank receipts, even voice recordings. She's done this before. You weren't her only victim. It was a betrayal, layered on betrayal." Later that night, she told Ibrahim everything. He listened without interrupting, his face unreadable. When she finished, he said, "Let's bring her down." Halimat blinked. "You mean take legal action?" "Yes," he said firmly. We'll use the full power of the Bello legal team, but only if you're ready." She paused, fingers curled around her glass. "I am. Not for revenge, but to stop her from doing this to anyone else." He nodded. "Then we begin tomorrow." They flew to Kaduna quietly. No press, no security entourage. Just the two of them and two of Ibrahim's legal aides. Khadijah was staying in a modest flat in Ongwan Rimi. The moment she saw them walk into her compound, she froze. Her arrogance cracked for the first time. "What are you doing here?" she spat. Halimat stepped forward, confident. "We know everything. The forgeries, the grant scams, the impersonation." Khadijah sneered. "You can't prove." Yusuf entered with a thick brown envelope and slammed it on the plastic table between them. "Oh, but we can," he said. One by one, the documents spilled out. Photocopies of forms with Halimat's forged signature, fake IDs, payment receipts, screenshots of bank transfers. Khadijah's face went pale. Halimat looked her in the eye. "You didn't just steal from me. You stole from women who needed help. You used the name of someone who actually wants to build something good and dragged it through the mud. You ungrateful little." "No," Halimat cut in. "Not this time." Ibrahim spoke next. Calm, cold. "You have two choices. One, sign a written agreement to transfer all assets obtained through fraud to the Bello Foundation and leave the country permanently. Two, face prosecution and jail time. We have enough to convict." Khadijah's voice trembled now. "You wouldn't do that? Your family." "You stopped being family the day you sold me off like a business deal," Halimat said, voice steady. After an hour of threats and tears, Khadijah finally broke. She signed the documents. By the next week, she was gone. Last anyone heard, she had moved to Dubai under a false name. Halimat didn't feel triumphant. She felt free. Months passed. The stolen funds were repurposed to establish the Adamu Women's Initiative, a project in Halimat's father's name. It offered free skills training, microloans, and legal support for widows and struggling young women. The first center opened in Bauchi, then Jos, and plans for a third were already underway in Sokoto. Halimat found her purpose again. But more than that, she found partnership. Ibrahim wasn't just a man she had to tolerate, he was a man she admired. And somewhere between board meetings and suhoor meals, admiration turned to affection. One quiet morning in Abuja, now their new home, gifted to them by Alhaji Bello, after Ibrahim was appointed head of the family's new renewable energy division, they stood on the balcony, watching the city wake. Halimat wore a soft teal hijab, her hand gently resting on her stomach. Ibrahim leaned on the railing beside her, sipping from a steamy mug. "Do you regret it?" he asked suddenly. She looked at him. "Regret what?" "How we started." She was quiet, for a moment. Then she smiled. I regret the lies, but not where they led. He nodded. Same? She turned to face him fully. We were forced into this, but we chose what came next. He placed his palm over hers, over the small swell beneath her gown. You think the child will inherit your stubbornness or mine? He teased. She laughed. Both? May Allah help us? He bent and kissed her forehead, then whispered, I never believed in love that grows. I thought it had to strike like lightning. But you taught me patience and partnership. And you taught me that not all men control with power, she said. Some lead with peace. As the call to prayer echoed over the hills of Abuja, they both stood in silence, their hearts full. What began as a trap had become a treasure. What started as a lie had become a life. And what once felt like punishment now felt like destiny.